And we're live and on the air, and this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. And I'm Ed Dyer. I'm a minion of This Week in Science, the best science podcast in the whole universe. Joining me, Justin Jackson, a full-fledged member of that team. How you doing, Justin?
Doing great.
That's great to hear. And normally we have Dale Liebrick. He's our Canadian tower technician, but he said he's going to be in a remote location.
Uh-oh.
Now, he's in Saskatoon, Canada. So when he says remote, I'm thinking polar bear country.
Yeah, what could that even mean? He's always broadcasting from remote areas, remote locations. For him to have gone even off the map in a remote location like Saskatoon, that's got to be way out there.
Pamela Taylor said she'll be with us, but one, Chelsea's sleeping, and two, she's got one of her law school assignments. So she should be here a little bit later. But we got some really interesting stories to talk about. One talking about bringing education to schools in remote areas of Africa. It's called the Solar Classroom in a Box. We've got the TechGirls. This is it's kind of it's teens who are from North Africa and the Middle East being invited to the United States, interacting with other tech-oriented girls. They're kind of an outreach program. And it is exactly the kind of thing that's going to bring us that better world. People reaching out over, all the barriers of race, religion, ethnicity, nationalism, and all that stuff, getting to know each other. These girls from North Africa, Middle and East, they're going to be planting the seeds back in their home country.
Well, let's go right into that story. Let's actually start with that story, because there's something really that is contentious and uplifting about this at the same time.
Okay.
So I'll let you start with the premise of the story, and then I'll throw in what I'm getting at with the contentiousness of it.
Okay. I want to do the screen share thing. No, yes, that is the right thing. Okay, there we go. And right now you got 27 tech-savvy teenage girls from the Middle East and North Africa are having the time of their lives, it says, proving their math and science chops and setting an example for girls around the world. This is hosted by the U.S. State Department and Legacy International. Girls between the age of 15 and 17. They come from Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Palestinian territories, Yemen, and Tunisia, and they're working side by side with American teens and leaders in the tech industry. It's called the Tech Girl Exchange Program, launched 4 years ago. To date, 80 tech girls have shared their schools back home with another 2,000 schools of their in their home country. They've led conferences. Some of them have gone on to studies at some of the world's universities. I'm going to read a couple of things that some of these girls are saying. Not only did I acquire a rich knowledge of technology thanks to intense academic training, but I find myself immersed in an extraordinary atmosphere, full of things to learn, challenges to overcome, new thoughts to explore. Back home, she says she has found that many of her peers were interested in what she has learned. It's mainly because of the rising consciousness of Moroccan girls about the importance of technology and in the development of society, and the lack of mentors in technology in my peers in the region that I live in. Let's see, we got another girl, Roa.
And so this is, and also so this is leading into what is slightly I'm stating as contentious about this. What an outreach program like this states that it's doing is to inspire that, you know, like just like what was said, and they're in an area or region that lacks the mentors, that lacks the leadership in this field, especially, of course, amongst women. And the idea is that you're engendering this connection to seeing other women working in this field, and then that these women would somehow go back and be the role models within their country and be those leaders and be those mentors. More likely what's going to happen is it's going to be sort of a brain drain in essence on that country, because these girls will quickly realize not only is the standard of living likely better where they're visiting, but also the infrastructure is there for them to progress. We have women's rights to the degree that they will not encounter if they go back home again. And so my estimation is all of these girls' exposure is ultimately going to lead to a drive for them to leave whatever country they're in and come here to apply their skills. Come here to get those jobs in which they will actually get rewarded to a standard of living unparalleled compared to where they're coming from. And also, they're not going to have the obstacles. They will have mentors who are strong women, strong educated women here who they can work towards, communicate with, and better their skills. Where all of those things, all those simple things that we take for granted here, like finding something you're interested in, pursuing it, there's huge obstacles there. So, and I say it's contentious. I say it's contentious not from the point of view of the United States welcoming the female brainiacs into our born, because this is exactly what this is intended to do. But I think the resistance back home is these are likely not people who are going to take away the message of you can do whatever you set your heart on, go back home and apply it. Likely they're going to go back home and realize that they have very limited options to do so, and now we'll work towards coming here, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing for the United States. I feel like the exchange student part of it, if we're talking about that international uplifting of the image of women in the world, would really need to be going the other direction. We would need to be sending strong women there to lead these internships and be the role models there where the role models are missing, rather than bringing people here and showing them a higher standard of living and a greater access to accelerated education and glass ceiling, as it may be, still much, much higher. In terms of it benefiting the native countries that they're coming from, I think it will do very little. I think it does a great job of acquiring talent for the United States, which we're always looking for. But in terms of some of the message that was being illustrated there, I think it's facetious. I think it's not true. I think you would have to be holding, you would have to have somebody who is already of that mindset here in the United States going back and building that within the communities there to have the impact there, much more so than I think these girls will take back with them.
What do you guys think?
Patrick? We're talking about an outreach program. Teenage girls from the Middle East coming to the United States and learning about tech savvy. They're talking to technical leaders. They're talking to teenage girls from America. So it's an outreach program between the Middle East and the United States. It has, so far, 80 girls have gone through the program. some of that so far, some of them have gone to universities, and others have stayed at home, at least for now. And I agree with what you're saying, Justin. Certainly some of them are going to discover that, yes, I would much rather live
within 4 years of this visit, 90% of them are realizing that their home country doesn't have a legal infrastructure, doesn't have a civil rights infrastructure, doesn't have an education or tech infrastructure that's going to support, or a standard of living infrastructure that's going to support what they've glimpsed, witnessed, and know that they could achieve here in the United States.
Yeah, but the thing is,
reason for them to stay in their country and help build it up.
No, but this is not how the individual looks at it. The individual looks at, I could stay in my country and apply myself and get a low-level tech job in a low-tech company, or if I could somehow find a way to where the land of opportunity actually is, I could actually accelerate much further beyond it. And this isn't just specific to this particular event. This is actually kind of a pattern over time of U.S. outreach, educational outreach, is that a lot of those that we educate or bring here to educate choose to stay here, which is exactly what you want. Bring us your brilliant, bring us your educated, bring us your well-reasoned masses yearning to produce something awesome. This is exactly what the United States wants. But I also don't think I mean, I agree completely with doing it. I just don't think the outcome is that going back and becoming the mentor in the home country. I think what actually happens is it sours those students on what the actual promise of their education could deliver within that home country, where, I mean, number one, the education might be more inaccessible, the technology funding might not be there, but also glimpsing the standard of living and the equality of the sexes once here might be enough to say, you know what, I gotta do whatever I can to find a way out.
I disagree with you on every point you just made. Odd.
Awesome.
I usually like what you say.
Right. No, I'm not saying I liked it. This is sort of a pattern. I mean, we've done this sort of education outreach throughout Africa. We've done it with a lot with China. There's a lot of Chinese foreign exchange students who end up staying and getting jobs with American companies because they realize they won't have the opportunity and the liberty if they ever go back home again. Nothing. I'm not saying anything negative about that. And I'm not saying we need to build a wall to keep the educated people out. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it works great. We should keep doing it. But I don't think that the premise of them going back to the home country and all of a sudden becoming the mentors and starting it all there, I don't think that works or makes sense. I think you would have to have this same generation, after coming to the United States and seeing the standard of living and achieving an educational excellence, going back after and creating that at home. And that's what you don't see as much, I don't think.
Yeah, but the world is changing, don't forget. Communication in particular. So let's say 75% of these young girls do go to the United States, do come to the United States. You know what? They're still going to be communicating with their girls back home. They're still going to be serving as role models for those young girls back in Morocco or any part of the Middle East. So they're still planting that seed.
Yeah. But what it took in the United States to get women's rights and equality as much as it even does exist today. And then you also have to say the feminist movement, white feminist movement versus the nothing really much has changed movement. It takes the infrastructure of those countries at home has a lot more, or is a lot more complicated than inspiring some girls who just didn't realize you could educate yourself and do these wonderful things. The real challenge is the political body itself in these countries that they're coming from. It's Islam, politics, misogyny, all these things that are heavily embedded within these cultures that need to be overcome. And in fact, that's why I'm saying they're more likely to want to come to the United States after having these moments of enlightenment, because the realization, I think, will quickly show up that you can't achieve all of this back home under the political, the religious, and the social dogmas of the day.
So you want them to give up on their own countries, then?
I'm not wanting anything. I'm just stating what I think the natural progression
You say
is.
they will.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm betting that they say, screw that, I'm not going back there. There's no way. I can achieve so much for myself, for my family, for everything else if I stay in the United States and make it here. Then if I go back home, I kind of know what's going to happen, and I'm not willing to put up with that for another generation or two. Because, yeah,
So, Justin, why is it better for the U.S. if the brilliant minds of these countries emigrate to the U.S. as opposed to staying in their own countries and making their countries better and more stable and productive?
Okay, so these girls may come to the United States and become PhD teachers, contributors to Apple or Microsoft or whatever tech company that they go to work for. They may, one of them may help design the next generation of hybrid battery that allows electric cars to go that much further. If they stay in their home country, they may be teaching girls algebra, but then that's the end of the schooling and they have to go back. This is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying that the ceiling for what you can even be educated as a woman and what you can do with that education doesn't exist to that same level and with the same number of openings that it would in this country. To the United States' benefit, which has always been a part of our, you know, when they talk about shutting down the borders in this country, they're talking about laborers. They're not talking about educated elite, because we can cull the most brilliant people into this country from their native nations and have them do amazing things here. This is what this country has been built on. So,
you don't believe in revolutionaries?
What countries are they coming from?
all of them.
Algeria, Morocco, all Middle Eastern, Palestinians, some of their Palestinians.
Yeah. This particular group, I'm sorry, is Middle East, Palestine, yeah, North Africa and Palestine. So we're talking like Egypt and Tunisia and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. And I was this was a while ago. I was reading something about the more southern than North Africa. I don't think that's South Africa. You have to go all the way down there. But the rest of Africa, a lot of these education outreach sort of programs led to those who were outreached to and educated coming to the United States and lending their talents here, as opposed to staying in the home country and somehow elevating the educational level there. And it's, you know, it's the call of the individual to say, I will have a better standard of living and I can pursue education further and I can attain more with my career and my talents if I go to some place where there's a backing for it, an infrastructure for it.
So, from what I'm hearing you say, you hypothesize that having them come to the United States and have that be their home base and then reaching back out to their home countries from the U.S. is the better bet.
No. Well, yeah. So I'm saying the more likely scenario for a good outreach for the countries they're coming from, we're going to get a great benefit from this as the United States, because these girls, within months of returning home, will start working out the plan to get here. Okay, this is now their one mission in life, is to get back to the United States so they can pursue their education and careers. The only thing that could work is if you took people who are a first-generation success, maybe, and it's going to be much tougher with the second-generation success that doesn't feel that connection, that thinks, well, maybe there's a reason my family left that country. Why would I go back? But those
I don't know.
people going
sorry
back.
for cutting you off, but let me just read a couple of. Just reading what they're saying. I'm
Right
sorry.
now, early.
What they're
It's
saying.
early.
I gotta
It's
tell
early.
you. Revolutionaries. These are the revolutionaries, the tech revolutionaries.
Yeah.
We've got Miriam Abu Hassan. She says she's counting down the days to come to her computer class at home. Can't wait to return home to teach coding to the girls in her country. There you go. Hassan the revolutionary. 15-year-old Russia Al something or other from Jordan. She plans to return home and teach her own class in Java and processing and to promote the TechGirls program to anyone who is interested.
Yeah.
Revolutionary.
Right on.
Where's the problem right there? She needs to never, ever teach Java to anybody.
Oh, come on, techie there, Patrick.
Python. Python is better. Ruby on Rails. C, C++. Well, no, we use just that much anymore. Objective-C, but not Java. Screw Java.
I don't know, Justin.
All right.
Cynic.
All right.
The cynic about human character.
No. It's
thinking
not
about,
the human.
oh my God, look at all this money I can make. They're probably making plans to get their own little. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of it is the selfishness thing, right? Part of it is that. Part of it is that standard of living thing. But the other part of it would be, you go back and you start teaching programming to the girls, right? And then your favorite student, the one you're like, this is why I did this, because she gets it, she's amazing at it. Everything I've taught her, she's picked up and utilized right away. And then she doesn't show up to school. And you find out a little later that she had an arranged marriage and is now supposed to be the wife of a dirt farmer and isn't allowed, because he says so, to attend class anymore. I mean, this has only happened enough times, and then that person with this enthusiasm for tech finds that she applied for a school and there was male applicants who she knows she's got better tech skills than, but they all made it in, and she was refused again for the second time, the third time. Or she's at, I mean, I don't think that we can fully appreciate how misogynistic a society can be without throwing ourselves back 50 years, right?
Yeah, but I don't think you can you're appreciating how much home means to a lot of people. You know, they want to go back home. They want to improve their own society.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what they're saying. I'm using that music, revolutionary. You don't think that's what these girls, I mean, that's what they're saying, first of all, but you don't think that's what they really want? They really don't want to go back home? They don't want to raise the standard for...
Oh, sure. And I'm sure every pilgrim on his way across the ocean said, I'm going to make it here, and then I'm going to bring my wealth and success back. And I'm sure every miner who trudged across this country and ended up in San Francisco said, yeah, I'm just going to make some gold and send it back and get my fortune, and then I'll go back and take care of the family. No, but this isn't what happens. When you find a better climate, you don't want to go back to the one that you knew had all these faults, because you didn't know they were faults. You may have this nostalgia for an age that never existed. This childhood country of yours that you really felt a kinship to, until you go somewhere and have the veil of bullshit removed and realize, wow, it was completely horrible. I can't believe my family, my mother and my sister, had to put up with all. My grandmother lived in this society where it was even a little bit worse than it is now. And why would I go back there? It sort of like reminds me, I had some friends here who, well, acquaintances, I guess, but they were Indian, and they had an arranged marriage, not with each other, right? They were at Stanford University, I believe, at the time, when they met and fell in love. And so, yeah, they were both supposed to go back to India, and one was supposed to marry the seamstress, and the other was supposed to marry the dirt farmer, right? And they said, screw that. Why would we do that? We're both Stanford educated and in love. Why are we going to follow those traditions? So it's not just the nostalgia for the country. You also have to understand there's a lot of conditions put on an individual, religious, social, political, to be part of that society, that once you've lived without those restrictions, insanely hard to accept them.
Yeah, but there are countless examples of people who do go back home, who do go back home to try to make the world better. I know at least two. I know two Mexican immigrants.
Okay.
They came here to work 2 jobs, 7 days a week to make some money, and go back home and help their family. They could have stayed. One of them, their son came over. They went back home. You got to appreciate the draw of home, the desire of many people to want to go back home and make that home better, and they're willing to sacrifice to do it.
Justin, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been places, right? And where do you always want to go back to and never leave because you say it's better than anywhere else?
My couch.
California.
Oh, yeah.
So take that mentality and put it in everybody else, and you might have an understanding of what Ed is getting at.
If there was a place better than California on the planet, in my many, many travels, I could see myself being strongly drawn. I feel a pull to Portland. Portland was a wonderful city. I feel a tug in that direction. Not enough. The gravity isn't strong enough. The pull isn't strong enough. But I can tell you what, if all of a sudden California limited my daughters to a high school education, I would be gone now.
Now, Patrick, let me ask you a question. Where do your parents live?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Why do they still live there?
Why aren't you there? Where's your kinship for Omaha, Nebraska, Patrick? How come you're like, I'm going to teach Omaha, Nebraska, tech and stuff? Like, no.
I like Omaha. Omaha's great.
Yeah, it's great. What's the tech sector like in Omaha right now?
Yeah, but his family's back in Nebraska.
It's pretty good. I just don't want to do Windows and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no Mac stuff. I mean,
This is kind of the point, though. When you have limited options in a location, it becomes less attractive, regardless of nostalgia. Nostalgia is the easiest thing to
What
overcome.
about all the American
The main
missionaries?
reason I won't go back to Omaha, I'd have to deal with my mom every single day. That's not the main reason I will not go back to Omaha.
All right, so I'm gonna give that to.
If I did go back to Omaha, I wouldn't tell her I moved back.
I'm gonna.
Uh-oh.
Patrick's mom, I'm so sorry. He'll learn eventually how good of a mother you have been to him, and how much you have struggled and sacrificed to give him the life that he has.
The only thing I don't like about my mom is that she plans events that I'm supposed to go to and doesn't tell me about them until like the day before and expects me to show up. That's why I won't go back. Otherwise, she's great.
She pulled a full-grown baby out of a coin purse. Don't you dare say anything negative about this woman.
It's 12:50. We've been here, I don't know, 45 minutes, and I think we're kind of falling off the rails pretty quickly here.
Okay.
Not that this isn't fun.
Okay, next story, Ed. What else you got?
Oh my God! I don't know how in the world we're going to top that particular conversation. Let's see.
Hey, my mom's well aware of why I won't go.
I'm still saying you owe her a debt that you cannot pay. Physically,
Man, if I was still there, she'd want me to live in her house because she's like.
As you well should.
No.
As you well should.
That will never happen.
There's a little help that mom could use around the house. Why wouldn't you?
Okay, I got a couple of fun stories. This is shade balls. And in case, Patrick, I don't know if you've ever heard of shade balls, but this is the great scheme. Los Angeles, the mayor, governor, whoever, I think the mayor,
Yeah.
It's his great scheme
Governor of
to
California.
how to protect the water reserves from things like evaporation.
All right. So I just seen this. I'd never heard of this before either, and I guess they've tested it a couple times, and now they're doing it. I can't remember what the percentage of evaporation. Maybe it's 15%, maybe it's 20%, but it was in like the millions and millions of gallons of water this would preserve. But basically, what they're doing,
Oh yeah, I've heard of these.
they're taking these plastic balls that are about the size of tennis balls, maybe a little bit smaller even, and they're black, and they take, I don't know, many tens of thousands of them, pour them into the reservoir. They float on the surface. They reflect the sun back
Oh, those
up.
are like croquet balls. 4
Yeah,
inches.
and they prevent evaporation by reflecting the sun away, and therefore more water stays in the reservoir. The sketchy part of this is that there's apparently they have a 10-year life. So how do you get these tens of thousands of little polyethylene balls back out of the reservoir when it's time to replace them?
You got a big scoop. Come on.
Yeah,
That's
it's
easy.
Dude, that is so easy. What are you talking about?
Well, let me just talk about some of the information here, and it's Mayor Eric Garcetti, and they got 96 million of these shade balls, and you got the Los Angeles Reserve, and it's 175 acres. It holds 3.3 billion gallons, and they say they'll save 300 million gallons a year from evaporation. They also say it'll help with algae problems. And if you can see it, there they go, rolling down. Can't that be fun? Come on. Wouldn't that be fun, rolling all these little balls down there?
I was saying tens of thousands. I'm completely off by magnitude.
Oh, it's a million.
It was nearly 100 million of these
that's eventually
put into the reservoir.
That's what it looks like.
Whoa.
I wonder what their original use was.
No clue. A guy named Brian White, he was a biologist, and he
Oh, you know
based
what
the idea on something called bird balls.
You know what these are? These are playpen balls for kids.
Polyurethane.
I know what they look like.
4-inch polyethylene balls. They emit no chemicals. They'll split in half, they say, eventually after 10 years. Then you just get a scoop in, you pick them up.
Scoop, but they're not even going to be floating anymore.
Of course they'll be floating.
They're
Why
breaking
should
in
they say?
half.
They're not
sinking to
sinking
the
now.
bottom.
Come on.
Justin, plastic floats, it doesn't sink.
Okay.
Well, certain types of plastic. I assume this is one.
Maybe. It seems like that's going to be a nasty cleanup operation. But hey, you know what? That's 9 years from now's problem.
There you go. The cost is going to be $34 million. And I think it'll work in some areas. If you're talking about maybe a reserve where you want to have people water skiing and fishing, no, that's not going to work so much. But a regular reserve like this, I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, and this is just a giant concrete pen to keep water in until it goes into the water supply. So that's fine.
So my question is, what happens to the weather system when this supply of water is not evaporating into it?
So Nevada gets drier. They won't even notice.
Oh, this is Nevada?
No, this is Los Angeles.
I don't get the question.
So he's saying what happens to the atmospheric weather conditions without this moisture going up into it. Probably no effect, but it gets a little bit drier in Death Valley, which is already really dry. That's what's to the east. That's where this moisture would be carried if it were going into the air, I guess. It's already desolate desert. It gets to 126 in the storm.
Whenever I hear about stuff like this, I always think everything is connected. What is this doing to everything else?
I'm going to guess certainly for reserves, the evaporation itself might not have that much of an effect. And I had a story here too where the El Nino is going to be, this year, it's going to be the strongest in 65 years, strongest since they've been measuring it. Let's see, they say the southern United States from Florida to Central California, may expect higher levels, higher than normal levels of precip. East Coast going to be higher. Rockies, Great Lakes, Hawaii, and Alaska maybe a little bit warmer, drier. This is over the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I guess you guys been getting some rain lately? A little more rain this year or anything?
No.
Well, maybe you'll get more rain later in the season.
Driest it's ever been. There have been a couple weird summer sprinkles, but nothing serious. No, we definitely need this 100-year storm to come through, create flooding and devastation, and then get some of the reservoirs back in shape.
Yeah, so in your case, you really need strategies, whatever the strategies are, to deal with the drought in California. That's long term. That's not going to go away anytime soon.
Well, California is normally in a drought. I mean, California's always been in a drought. We had some sort of a wet period when we happened to settle here, but it's been mostly drought most of the time. We've had a benefit of irrigation. The biggest problem California has is an unregulated growth of agriculture, which has taken what is even to not just is deserty, barren land today without rain, but was land without rain 100 years ago, was irrigated. A lot of the South Central Valley was only used for prisons and a freeway to transit from the north part to the south part of the state. Now has, and I took this picture. I took a picture and I got it somewhere. There was an area, if you drive from Northern California to the Southern California, I used to call the Great Nothing, because it was just dirt. It was just dirt, any direction. It looked like a desert. Now there's agriculture all the way down. And in fact, I have this picture I took while driving, which I shouldn't totally admit, but oh no, I think I handed the camera off for somebody to take a picture. That's my lie. I'm sticking to it. But it shows a grove of, I think, almond trees. And there's a fence there, and there's a big tumbleweed stuck in the fence, like a 4-foot-high tumbleweed. And that's all that used to be there was the tumbleweed. But now that tumbleweed is stuck in the fence of an ag field. And this is the dichotomy. It's like this is still desert land that now we're pumping water into to produce agriculture. So I think, despite the fact that there has definitely been a lot less rainfall lately, it's exasperated by the fact that we have agriculture in deserts with primitive irrigation. I mean, we're not using conservationist irrigation in these areas. We're using pour the water around and down fields, spray it from the sprinkler up into the air so that it then half evaporates before it lands. We're using archaic irrigation in a time of drought in an expanded desert that we never used to farm before, and creating more of a toll on our water supply. So it's a multifaceted clusterfuck of things going on.
Okay. Since we had so much fun talking about shade balls, I've got how about Fatbergs? And these are let me see there we go. Let me screen share. Definitely got to show pictures here.
So big fan of the Fatberger. Oh wait, this is not a
There
Fatberger.
you go.
What is this?
That's a Fatberg. And this is an article in The Guardian by a guy named Ian Wiley. And these Fatbergs, they're made up of fats, oils, and greases. And they're a serious problem in the sewers in Milan. They had typhoons Yige and Falcone that really created these Fatbergs with the rising water, and then these Fatbergs clogging up the drains, and they had all kinds of flooding in the streets. You got the same kind of problem in London, Melbourne, New York, Denver. And this guy's name is Ian Wiley, and he talks about how he went into the sewer system, and it says, and this is a great description, atop the brown rutted crust that spans the width of the sewer sit flies, maggots, condoms, syringes, corks, cotton buds, and it's thick enough to support an occasional rat. It's a rat raft. And they step into it, and let's see, as we step down, break the crust into the liquid fat, grease, and oil, we sink into a thick, porridge-like pop. Isn't this fun? Isn't this fun? Come on.
Damn you, Ed, I was just about to make a smoothie.
Well, it gets even worse, because in some place they have what they call, flushable wipes. If fat is like the mortar, wet wipes are like the bricks in a Fatberg. Some of these are the weight of a Porsche. They're bonded together by these white wipes, and in this one London sewer in Chelsea, 400,000 pounds worth of damage. And one of these Fatbergs was the length of a Boeing 747. One of them was the size of a double-decker bus.
Oh my goodness.
I immediately, everybody is gone. Justin is left.
So, I will never complain about my job again. Ever again.
Yeah.
That's insanity. Somebody has to go and... So they have a removal crew that's job is to go down there and break up these bergs of detritus in the sewers. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my first introduction to guys who worked in the sewers was Art Carney.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. Man, that must be a nice, fun job working in the sewer. And the more I read about this job, you know what? This maybe isn't so much fun. And I wonder if the people in the restaurants, and they have their nice little dinners, and then the restaurant owners, and they scrape all this grease and stuff. You know what? It goes down in the sewers. It's going somewhere. It's going down in the sewers. And on top of that, our sewer systems are falling apart. It's not only clogging up clogged sewers we got to worry about. It's these sewers, the leaking. It's the whole infrastructure.
Yeah, well, how many Americans are there now?
Over 300 million.
Mm-hmm. And how many times a day do each of you flush?
6.
Wow. That's actually kind of impressive, Patrick.
Does that count?
I don't flush for urine. I'm sorry. Maybe once.
He's a yellow, let it mellow kind of guy.
Yeah. I also live alone, so.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all got to go somewhere. Don't know where it goes. I like to think it just goes down to the core of the Earth and is incinerated by the hot molten iron core of the planet, and it comes back as fairy dust whenever a volcano erupts. Yeah, well, infrastructure is insane. I mean, it's one of those things. Like whenever I think of infrastructure, mostly in terms of the benefits that we're no longer paying for, like city workers and firemen and policemen and stuff, the pension plans. Infrastructure is kind of like a reverse pension plan. Like, we're going to build all this stuff because we got finance to build this crazy highway system, this wild sewer system, this intricate electrical system. And there it is. We built it. And then as generations go on, somebody's still got to maintain this. And at some point, the maintenance cost of a sewer, a bridges of this, that, and the other, isn't there? Gets cut, gets pushed back, gets put to the side. Well, it's still working. Why would we fix it? And then, like, houses in San Francisco blow up because the gas line hasn't been inspected since 1940. You know, like, infrastructure is a crazy thing when you really think about how many generations built this infrastructure and how long some of it's still, like, in the ground and operating. And
out of sight, out of mind.
Someone's got to do it.
There was a steam. This was a few years back, but there was a huge steam like explosion or steam geyser that showed up, blew a hole through a street in New York, and apparently it was built in like this steam pipeline that was, you know, I don't know if it's creating heat or electricity or what it's being used for. It was built in like was put down in the ground in like 1930. And there it sat for, you know, 80 years or so, without maintenance or inspection. Just like, yeah, it'll stay, it'll work forever.
Dude, the elevator system in the Flatiron building in New York is pneumatic. When it breaks down, they don't call an elevator repair guy. They call a plumber.
Wow, that's wild.
Did you see the huge explosion that happened in China?
Yeah, I just figured that's like the huge explosions that happen every once in a while in like fertilizer plants in Texas. It's like, yeah, as long as you don't believe in regulations, everything will be just fine. And then, boom. Yeah, the laws exist for a reason, people. Building codes, what chemical you can store what the next other chemical, and how often you have to have it turned over. It's there for a reason. I'm actually surprised. Well, I'm either surprised that doesn't happen more often in China than it does, or assume that it's not reported most of the time because it's hideable. But yeah, that's what lack of regulations looks like.
Big explosion, man.
Yeah.
It was like a big block.
Yeah, that's what lack of an EPA regulation does. Is it allows bigger, crazier mistakes to take place.
You know, well, China's got all these great plans. They talked about the city that's going to hold, what was it, several 100 million people or something, but they've got problems. They are devaluing their currency by 20% over maybe 4 years, and they're doing it in an attempt to make their products cheaper for the Chinese. And Justin's talking about, you know, California exporting vegetables and things overseas, rice probably over to Asia, and now you got China, and Russia's doing the same thing. Russia, they destroyed I don't know how many tons of food that was imported. And I don't know if they burned it, I don't know what but they destroyed it because it was imported food. So in both China and Russia, you know, they're really starting to react. They're having financial problems, and they're reacting to imports. On the other hand, I see Justin is probably off. Perhaps Justin is about to flush. We don't know. In New Jersey.
If you're not flushing a lot, you're not staying hydrated.
In New Jersey, did you know, Patrick? There's the Arrow Farms in New Jersey. They're going to build they're going to turn, actually pretty cool, a defunct steel mill into a 70,000 square foot vertical farm. Going to cost them $39 million, one of the largest vertical farms in certainly in the country. And I think that's really going to be the way. And cities, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take 20 years, but that definitely is going to be the trend. You're going to see food grown more locally. In big cities, you're going to see factory farms. In these maybe 10, 20-story buildings, you're going to see big factory farms. There's going to be locally produced food.
What are they growing?
Let's see. I threw it away. Threw away the store. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. I know herbs and leafy products, tubers, fruits, tubers.
I haven't heard of tubers in vertical.
Oh, wait a second. No, it says they're concerned that vertical farms aren't suited for growing tubers.
Okay.
So I guess they're mostly going to be growing herbs and leafy vegetables.
I suppose you could grow tubulars.
Couldn't you go rice?
Yeah, probably. It'd be a lot easier to harvest.
Yeah, I mean, you can the lights, LED lights or something.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about sunlight.
What is it? That big city in the UAE, Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Dubai imports something like 90% of their produce because they can't grow it. It's too hot and dry. So they're taking NASA's veggie technology that they're using on the space station and building subterranean farms that use the same systems so they can control the climate, and then they can use solar power to power the systems.
Subterranean farms.
Well, they take like shipping containers and they bury them so that it's the climate, so it's nice and cool, and they can grow they don't get all the dehydrated and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a great thing about building indoor factory farms and things. You can control the environment better. You probably don't have to worry about insect pests, so you probably don't need to use insecticides or anything like that. So it's a controlled environment. Initially, it's got to be more expensive, I would think.
Yeah, bigger upfront cost. Pays off over time.
And over the long run, 10 years, I don't know. It should be pretty profitable pretty quickly. I mean, if you put up something like that in a city like New York, a city where you got 1 million more people, well, you have your natural consumers. You got your consumers right there.
New York's 20 million.
20 million, yeah.
I think. The greater New York is, anyways.
Don't know. I know at one time, 10 years ago, it was 20 million in the city if you counted tourists. Let's see. New York City. Pop. 2014.
8.406. Well, New York State's 20. No, that can't be right.
No, that's not. New York City is probably could be 8 million. I could believe that.
I thought it was more than that.
But it's such a transit population, so that any given time you certainly have easily double that. Let's see. 2014. What does it says? Yeah, 20 million. 19.75 million.
Yeah, I thought that was for...
Oh, that's the state.
Yeah.
Dummy. I didn't put in the state. Yeah, I didn't put here. 8 million. 8.4 million. 2013. Okay. But again, probably big cities like New York and Chicago, it's the visitors. So that population swells. So you might have only 8 million residents, but again, you got 16 to 20 million people in the city at any one time using all the city's resources. I'm amazed at that. Well, again, China's plans to, and it would be like the suburban area around Beijing. And it's, I think, maybe it was 125 million. I forget the exact number. Maybe even 200 million people. They're planning to live in this kind of suburban city Some people have already started to live in it. They say there's nothing there. It's terrible. A big factor in why the Chinese government says it will work is because of their bullet trains. They say you shouldn't have to commute more than an hour, and they claim that their bullet trains will allow people to commute from this suburban city to Beijing itself. I kind of got my doubts. I've read, I think there was another city China was building. It was gonna, I don't, maybe it was going to be environmentally perfect or something, and now it's just a ghost town.
Shanghai alone grew sevenfold. No. Shanghai is 23 million from 6.61 million.
Mexico City's up there, I know.
Mexico City is like 30 million.
Yeah.
Like the size of Canada in one city.
Yeah. And it's sinking in the middle.
Yeah, that's because they built it on a lake. You ever hear the myth of how the city was founded?
Can't remember it. Heard it, forgot it.
They were looking for a place to build, I don't know if it's actually their capital city, but like their capital city or a city or of some sort. And there was like a prophecy that when you see an eagle with a snake in its talons or something, that's where you should build it. And so they saw it on a lake, and so they built it right on top of the lake.
Around the lake, that's good. On top of a lake, I don't know.
I don't know if that's the complete story, but it's close.
Well, I mean, that's you think of with the rising tides and things, and with the surf, high surfs and things. You think of it like Boston. Boston's much of Boston was built on over the bay, whatever bay they're on, and Cape Cod. Cape Cod is always changing its shape because you know, the storms coming in and reshaping the landscape.
Yeah, because the symbol for the city is an eagle with a snake in its talons. According to the story, the god indicated their new home with a sign, an eagle perched on a nopal cactus with a snake in its beak. Between 1325 and 1521, another city-states, also around Lake Texcoco and the Valley of Mexico, where the Spaniards arrived, the Aztec Empire reached Mesopotamia, or Mesoamerica, Gulf of Mexico. Where's the population?
Well, you know, with all this California is going to fall off with earthquakes. You know what that means, Patrick? Sooner or later, you're going to have to move home. Move home to your mother, whether you like it or not. And I'm going to be moving with you. We're only going to be living in Iowa and Nebraska. And
it's not, no, California will fall off on the San Andreas Fault. We still have all the interstates, interior states. Let's see, in 1980, the city's population was doubled to 8.8 million. 20 million were full equivalent of the entire state of Texas. Yeah, it's
you know,
about
Pat,
1 million. And then Cairo is like even bigger. Cairo is huge.
I've got a robot story, a robot AI story. Since you're here, you can let me know what you think about it. It's story number 11. Robot mimics evolution is what they claim. And let me screen share for whatever the heck audience we have. All right. That doesn't look such a hot little robot thing, but let me read it. The researchers at the University of Cambridge, they built what they call a mother robot that can independently build its own children and test which one does best, then use the results to inform the design of the next generation so that preferential traits are passed down from one generation to the next. They say in 5 separate experiments, the mother designed, built, and tested generations of 10 children using the information gathered from one generation to inform the design of the next. The results, reported in +1, found that preferential traits were passed down through generations so that the fittest individuals in the last generation performed a set task twice as quickly as the fittest individual in the first generation. They say for each robot child, there is a unique genome made up of the combination of between 1 and 5 different genes, which contains all of the information about the child's shape, construction, and motor commands. As in nature, evolution in robots takes place through mutation, where components of one gene are modified, or single genes are added or deleted, and crossover, where a new genome is formed by merging genes with 2 individuals. In order for the mother to determine which children were fittest, each child was tested on how far it traveled from its sitting position at a given time. The most successful individuals in each generation remain unchanged in the next generation in order to preserve their abilities, while mutation and crossover were introduced in the less successful children. Let me skip ahead a little bit. One of the biggest questions in biology is how intelligence came about, and we're using robots to explore this mystery. We think robots performing tasks, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. This is a caveat. A robot requires between 10 and 100 times more energy than an animal to do the same thing. This lab is filled with a wide area of hopping robots, which may take their inspiration from grasshopper. Sounds like a fun lab. And one of the developments is a chairless chair, a wearable device that allows the user to lock their knees and sit anywhere when the need for a chair arises. We're still a long way before we have robots that look and act and think like us, but we do have a lot of enabling technologies that will help us import some aspects of biology. What do you think, Patrick, if you're still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, voice of Patrick, what do you think?
That's interesting. I've heard of the chair thing. But besides that, cool, I guess. I don't know.
How far along the line do you think this takes us to robot AI? Because now apparently they had this one robot doing all of the designing for future generations.
I don't know that that actually qualifies as an AI.
Well, you're right.
As far as I can tell, that more has to do with procedural learning than anything else.
Yeah, the mother robot was designed and built by humans. The algorithm for the mother robot built by humans. So I guess it's a way of looking at the mechanics of evolution, perhaps something like that.
In video games, there's what's called procedural actions that take place based on for NPCs or non-player characters. So something happens, and based off of what happens, that NPC will do a certain action. And based off of where that NPC is, it'll do a certain action. And based off of what's going on around them, they'll do a certain action. And so that sounds very similar to what they were doing in this. And so it had like an on-the-fly recipe generator based off of what's going on with their environment and their young, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know that really qualifies as artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, and or maybe 2 weeks ago, and none of us thought that AI is going anywhere soon. Decades before we ever reach anything.
Well, apparently there was a conference of AI researchers that very select luminaries were invited to, and it scared the luminaries. So that's why Elon Musk is afraid of artificial intelligence and thinks it's a bad thing.
What does he know?
And that's why there's all these luminaries that are trying to get law made to prevent AI from ever operating weaponry and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which
so
is
farther, like the pure research aspect of it is a lot farther than we hear about because they're not publishing them yet.
right.
And that's true of most sciences.
So here's the thing. Yeah, and this is sort of what we talked about last week, and I am of completely two minds on this, and I'm grappling with this in terms of what actually I even dare to think or choose a direction on.
I think you're too binary about all this.
Yeah.
Like, there's not two things. It's like anything else. It's a fluid spectrum.
Well, I think you can call it black and white, though. I mean, either we have it or we don't have it. We weaponize it or we don't, right? And one argument for not weaponizing is you don't have a human making the final decision. You allow a desensitized sort of military action to take place where you haven't put human life of your soldiers at risk, but just machines went in and they secured an area. They took care of a task. They did whatever. And there is like what we have with drones. You know, drones are dropping bombs without being face to face with the target. Blah blah blah. And there is an element of that which is when civilians die, who do you blame? Do you blame the drone? Do you blame the intelligence? Well, our facts and figures said there should be enemy combatants or what have you there. Turned out it was a wedding party. Well, what about all the times when it wasn't a wedding party and we actually got the target? Is that something different, right? And then there's the other aspect is that...
Hold on a minute.
Go ahead.
Are you under the impression that U.S. military drone technology is fully autonomous?
No, I'm not. Sorry. What I'm drawing an illustration between the intelligence that we have as a chosen mission with this machine that drops a bomb compared to what's the difference really between that and giving that intelligence, that mission objective to an autonomous killing robot of some sort that goes in and does the same thing, and if it makes a mistake, the same sort of analysis evolves at the back end, which is, well, based on the intelligence we programmed it with, it should have only taken out good targets, and if it happened to take out a civilian target, it's because they happen to fall within the intelligence spec. So I guess I don't see, on one hand, a huge difference between a drone strike that hit a target, hit the wrong target due to faulty intelligence, and the faulty programming of a mission for an autonomous robot. I think those are almost one and the same in terms of excusing collateral war crimes damage, right? But on the other hand, there is another aspect to it, which is tough, which is you have a commander-in-chief that's going to pull the trigger on a mission and say, go do this. And then is there an ethical choice between sending a robot or sending somebody's father, brother, spouse, son to go to do the mission and be in harm's way? When you could have spent the money, because you have the technology, to send the robot, is there an ethical decision, not the ethic of going and doing the mission and going to war and committing the either act of war or the accidental war crime, as the outcome will later dictate, but is there an additional ethical question about if you have the choice between sending a human into harm's way on your side or sending the robot? Does that ethical decision force you into an AI militarized choice? Because we're looking at more vets, more soldiers have committed suicide by a multitude than actually died in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan. More vets come back from war have committed suicide than actually died in combat. So there's an ethical choice that favors an AI militarized direction, and you almost have to ignore the ethical decisions of collateral damage and all that because we already have that war crime taking place in conventional combat.
So what I see happening,
do you understand what I'm getting at, Patrick? Like,
so what I see happening here is, should this play out, so fighter pilots have combat fatigue and whatnot. I mean, any soldier has combat fatigue, but specifically like fighter pilots and whatnot, combat fatigue from hitting the wrong target or hitting a target they thought was the target, but it turns out wasn't the target, that kind of stress and whatnot. Drone pilots, same thing. They're not in the cockpit, but they're wired into the cockpit, and they still have the same stress. So fully autonomous, like they get orders and they go carry out the thing. Actual drone. I see the programmers getting combat fatigue because they programmed it and made a mistake, and so it's their fault.
So can I give you the other silver lining? We're all humans, all of us in this conversation, for the most part, present company excluded. So we all have this fight or flight instinct, and one of the things that took place at a lot of these border checkpoints or these checkpoints throughout Iraq and Afghanistan, when civilians were gunned down because they were using a different dialect to tell them to stop, or the classic example is the wedding party that was a different ethnic and didn't understand the dialect of the language that was being used that said stop, misinterpreted,
or the
kept
morons
going.
that can't tell the difference between a machine gun and a camera with the zoom lens on it.
Okay, so that's another great example, right? So these are human decisions. Now, if you had an autonomous robot at the checkpoint or manning the helicopter, and I like the checkpoint. I'm going to stick with the checkpoint a little longer first. The checkpoint, you don't have a self-preservation fear as autonomous. You can have you can program the Terminator soldier not to be concerned at all if they wait a little bit too long and get killed. They could be the good sheriff from the Old West and wait till somebody shoots before they shoot back, right? They can take that extra couple moments to identify a target that a human might panic and open fire. So there is that silver lining where you could program the autonomous soldier not to have any fear of self-preservation and wait that half second, that 2 seconds, that 5 seconds, or whatever the time frame is, longer to identify a target properly, to wait until they're fired at, until they're fired upon, to avoid human casualty. Now,
So you're saying
helicopter
third law should not be a law.
Wait, say that again, sir.
So Asimov's third law of robotics shouldn't be a law. I think it's the third law.
No, it couldn't actually be for the militarized autonomous robot. However, you could give it a higher threshold of engagement than you could possibly give a human soldier. A human soldier at some point is going to be afraid and do that preemptive thing or light up the wedding party car coming towards it for fear there may be a bomb in it, whereas the robotic soldier, not having detected any sort of explosives, may not react until either it detects or identifies the target substantially enough. So in that scenario, that checkpoint scenario, I could see the autonomous thing being good for civilians. Now,
I don't want
you brought up
I want to see the cops, not as soldiers.
well, yeah.
Okay, guys,
there you go.
Pamela is here, and I had a Pamela story. I want to make sure. I don't know, Justin, you're not going to be around for too much longer, probably. So I want to get into the Pamela.
Are you an oracle now, Ed? Have you
Yes.
figured out the time moment of my death?
I can see Pamela. Pamela's a day ahead of us. Well, I don't know. Is she? She's 12 hours ahead of us.
Yeah. She's well into tomorrow.
How you doing, Pamela? Just
Good.
finished your law work.
I haven't finished it, no. But the phone rang. I muted everything else but my phone and woke the baby, so here we are. I've got 1,000 words to go, so I've got to do that before midnight.
Okay, I'll jump into one story. Our friend the Tasmanian Devil. Let me see if you got it in the chat area. A little Tasmanian Devil story.
Before we get to that story, Patrick.
No, I am in command.
One more second.
I am in command of the.
I know you are, Ed. But Patrick brought up something. He brought up 2 points. I got to address the second one, because the other one he brought up was the helicopter, and that's actually.
See, Justin, I am in control. I have control. I am in the control room here. We're gonna let Pamela talk for a while.
Stop being
All right.
And that's
Pamela.
why my point stands.
well said.
Okay, Pamela. What do you think of Tasmanian Devils? What do you think about introducing Tasmanian Devils back into the Australian mainland? We got our group of people here who want to do it.
Well,
And
yes.
huh?
I've heard of it, and I didn't know that they ever were on the mainland, so you'll have to tell me all about it.
3,000 years ago. 3,000
Oh,
years ago, the
yeah, well,
Tasmanian
it was all-
Devils.
Was it
We're
all
here.
joined up? No.
Well, yes, Chelsea, what Chelsea said. In any event, they say that extensive dingo calls to protect livestock have shifted the ecological balance, paving the way for invasive predators to wreak havoc with native mammals, worsening Australia's extinction crisis and igniting discussions about bring back the devil. There are large areas where the dingo is gone, and we need a predator who can suppress fox numbers. They say the devil is the obvious answer. It doesn't pose as serious a risk to livestock, and has played a major role in stopping foxes in its foothold of Tasmania. In addition, Reintroduction could help ensure the long-term survival of devils because in Tasmania they have that facial tumor disease. The models mapped out different scenarios in which reintroduction of the devil could coexist with varying populations of two different predators, and what they say is it'll help reduce the present predators, fox and cats, and in the long run it will help grazing herbivores and wallabies and other animals be able to maintain their population. On the other hand, you're talking about an animal that went extinct 3,000 years ago, possibly because of man, I don't know. So is it really a good idea to reintroduce this animal?
Yeah, I don't know. It's the first I've heard of it. I know dingoes only came here 4,000 years ago. So what drove? I have no idea about this, but what drove the Tasmanian devil from the mainland 3,000 years ago anyway?
No clue. The article didn't mention that.
Yeah, because I mean there must have been a reason. You know, there were no.
It just says likely as a consequence of being hunted by dingoes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because you know there was only indigenous Australians back then. Foxes were only introduced with the English settlers, so they've only been here a couple, not even like 150 years. So foxes are new, and you know, so are rabbits and that kind of thing. Okay, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. I don't know. Don't go messing with things. I mean,
Australia had such a great record when you introduced rabbits and the cane toads. So.
Oh, we've made some shocking decisions. We're so strict now. Everyone who visits here complains how strict we are, but we're strict for a reason because we learn from our mistakes. So, although it's native to Australia, it hasn't been on the mainland for a really long time. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like messing with the ecosystem. Is that funny? Ecosystem.
I tend to agree with you. And I don't know, Patrick. I can't think of any problems in the United States with feral animals. I know you've got feral pigs in parts of the country. Georgia, I think, maybe Arkansas. I don't know if they really do any damage.
Equines.
What?
Horses. Wild horses.
Huh. Wild horses.
Invasive species. I don't know if they actually do damage, but they exist.
Yeah, they're captured. I think I'm guessing in most places where there are still wild mustangs, you have ranchers who will capture some of them. I think there are even permits and maybe even there are limits. I think wild dogs might be the only real feral animal. Wild cats create problems for birds and things, but in terms of being dangerous for, I mean, really, the most dangerous feral animal I can think of in the United States would be wild dogs.
We have also bears, mountain lions, wolves, deer.
We're talking in...
Well, you can include those if you want to in the discussion, but is it really feral animals? Reintroduction.
Okay.
The reintroduction of a species that has gone extinct, because the idea is that it will help get rid of a new predator.
Yeah. So then you could say the gray wolf in much of the United States. This is an
yeah, but that was a
reintroduction program.
Absence. Nothing else killed it off except for humans.
All right, mastodons.
That's your default.
It's my answer to everything. Yeah.
I mean,
frankly,
coyotes. They were not introduced, but coyotes can be something of a problem in many places, but not really a serious problem. Not for livestock, I don't think. You have the sheep farmers who claim reintroduced wolves have killed off sheep, But I'm, you know, there's a lot of skepticism about that. But in Australia, I mean, Australia, number one, you got a much larger extinction problem because so many of your animals were isolated from the rest of the world. They're not able to compete with introduced animals, so you've got a much larger extinction problem in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, if they're thinking that the Tasmanian devil might do better on the mainland and bring its numbers up, I don't know. As I said, this is the first I've heard of it, but yeah, I don't like our history with introduced species, and if it's been 3,000 years. But you know, then again, we're all going to die from climate change anyway, so I suppose it doesn't really matter.
No, we're not. Maybe you are. I'm not.
Oh, maybe. How are you going to survive? I'm welcoming global warming after these 3
We're going to
winters.
go to Australia. Your climate's going to be so much nicer.
Well, not where I've been, right, for the last 5 months.
That inland desert, it's all going to be nice and lush, right?
Oh yeah. True. Yeah, we've got about 1 million wild horses out there, and camels. We've got 1 million
Camels, I
camels.
forgot about camels. Yeah.
Yeah, they were introduced a long time ago. Yeah. No, the desert's pretty interesting. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on that story for sure. Now that you brought it to my attention, and see what happens with the Tassie Devil.
We're probably not going to be hanging out here too much longer. Justin maybe is gone. He was going to leave by 2 o'clock, so I don't know if Justin's coming back. I had 2 questions. 2 stories I wanted to get into. One of them might be maybe next week when we get Dale and Justin back. But that was your first internet experience. Oh, maybe we can touch on that. What was your first internet experience? What brought you into the World Wide Web? And for me, and I'm going back to the 1960s, and for me, it was really the fan groups. And back then, you had something like Reddit, where you had alt.subject.group. So you had alt.sports.New York Mets. You had alt.sci-fi.Doctor Who. And of course, being the internet, you had the famous fetishes, alt.penguins in stockings. So it was the alt.universe. It was kind of like Reddit. And then it was I think Star Trek really started the fan part of the internet, got more and more people introduced to it. My perception is in the late 1997s, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all of a sudden a lot of girls looking for that kick-ass, female heroine got involved in a lot of groups. That was basically my introduction to the internet.
Okay, well, mine.
Oh, go ahead, Pamela.
No, you go, Patrick.
Failing, go.
Okay. Well, mine was when I started my nursing degree, and I got my first email address, so it was all through the university. So, yeah, and we had the computer rooms, and you had to swipe your student card to go into these computer rooms, and so, yeah, just doing assignments. And I remember it was very exciting. My friend from primary school found she was at a different university, and we were able to go into a chat room and chat live by typing. It was quite slow back then, but that was very exciting. I remember that. You had to wait about 5 minutes for each response. So this would have been 99. Yeah.
Patrick, before you fall asleep, maybe you can give us a few thoughts.
I mean, the first, like, very, very first use, or like
Basically got you when you really started using it.
AOL chat rooms,
AOL chat rooms.
AIM, instant messaging.
Well, Chelsea's first internet experience was when she was 12 hours old. She Skyped with her grandparents.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think for a lot of grandparents, got in with video conferencing. They could see the grandkids. Facebook. I think a lot of the Facebook growth was family connections. You could interact with family members across the country, and I think maybe that's one reason now why you've got Google Plus tends to be more people who are techies, perhaps more people are interested in more technical discussions and things like that. Facebook, it's mostly friends and families for the most part interacting.
Yeah, yeah. I really only use Google Plus for this. I don't really do anything else on Google Plus. Yeah, but it probably wasn't. I was just thinking it probably wasn't AOL chat room back when I was chatting. And I remember, that's right. The other very exciting thing was, I just started watching a new TV show called South Park, and you could go. We found online. This is how old I am. We found online all the things, because Kenny mumbles, right? So it was all the things that Kenny was saying. So I remember being very excited and printed up about 100 pages of what people thought Kenny said. This is what I did with the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I even thought about it is our first story when you weren't here was about girls from North Africa and the Middle East coming over to the United States, taking part in technical conferences and things, outreach. And Justin didn't think it was going to be such a great thing. Justin thought that a lot of these young girls, they're going to like it here, they're going to stay here. My thoughts are, because of the internet, you're still going to have that outreach from one country to the next. And so that's why I'm so optimistic about the future, so that even if you have a young girl and she does go to she goes from Morocco and she does get a degree in the United States, maybe stays here, she's going to be interacting, she's going to be communicating with her former friends and things, with her family. She's going to be maybe even something of a mentor. So I think it's really a terrific thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, internet access, I know from friends of mine that have come from third world countries, internet access is often more accessible in a way in, say, the Philippines or Indonesia, where I've got some friends, or where my friends are from. Because although it's not high speed like we have here, it's free and accessible everywhere. And they all have it on their phones, and they actually probably have better, more consistent internet access than I do here in Australia. And I pay through the nose for it here. So even though they don't have, healthcare or hygiene in some places, they have the internet. And everywhere you go, in Southeast Asia where I've been, just all along the street, mobile phones, the smartphones. They're all for sale. They're all sort of the older models that we don't sell here anymore, but they're really accessible. And they're really cheap to run, and yeah. But the downside of that is I've got a friend who's Australian and US citizen living in Indonesia at the moment, and the other day, it was a couple of weeks ago now, his internet provider said, we're going out of business at the end of this month. You'll have to find a new provider. Sorry, they said the end of the month, sorry. And that was the 30th of July. And he goes, oh, so you mean the end of August? And they said, no, we mean tomorrow. As the end of, So he had to, you know, scramble around quickly and find a provider within 24 hours and that kind of thing. But that's just so they sort of casually go, hey, we're going out of business. So there's pluses and minuses. But, yeah, it's the whole trickle-down effect, I suppose.
Yeah, even scientific research, where you have people over the internet exchanging information, working on papers together, things like that. A paper comes out, and it's immediately accessible around the world. That's fantastic. And we're talking, Justin, we're talking about the internets. I'll ask you, what was your first experience with the internets? What really got you into the internets?
I think it was earlier tonight. So all right, this is a great question. So CompuServe, I think is the company's name. Back in the day when the internet wasn't the internet and it was only available to researchers at universities. Growing up in a research town, the pool house, one of my friends, had a computer that was connected up to this interweb thing, and we found a game on there where it was a multiplayer game where you were like a letter, you were an icon letter. It was like the alphabet, and you moved around the screen by using the arrows, and you would encounter things and you would fight them, and we played this game for like 12 hours because this was the first like MMORPG type thing that ever existed, right? And we thought it was the coolest thing ever. Turned out CompuServe was something like $5 a minute to access, which we didn't know. We were just kids. What do we know? So our 12 hours cost the University of California at Davis something in the neighborhood of, I don't know, a few $1,000s. Got my friend in a whole lot of trouble. Got Professor What's-It in a bit of hot water trying to explain what he was doing for 11 hours on this thing where you're supposed to just access a paper from somewhere and download it and be done with it. So that was my first experience with internet. Was before it was a thing anybody knew about, and it was just this amazing thing that existed in my friend's pool house, and had a game on it.
Think of something technical, and it must be all technical people driving it, but really, like I say, Star Trek probably, first big driver of people jumping on the internet. We're talking about things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer getting young girls interested, fan groups, fanfic, and the whole thing. But you're talking about gamers.
No,
Gamers.
The first thing, yeah, and this is when the internet was only a university connection. It wasn't general public stuff yet. This would have been, if I was to put a year on it, gosh, 83, 84? It was maybe even earlier than that, but it was around there. It was maybe 83. I'll leave it there. And then I had a friend. I had another friend who, through that same system, because his father was also a professor at the University of California, Davis, was sending fake FBI inquiry emails to other researchers on the net, on this network, saying that you need to stop using your computer. An investigation into your activities is underway, and you will be visited within the next 3 days by an agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. With whatever cheesy, god-awful font was available, that's all that was available. So it looked believable, and they were on that net, like they were monitoring, like right? This particular individual went on to start one of the first browsers, the search engines. Excuse me, not browsers, but he created one of the first search engines that's still in existence today in some form.
I used Alta Vista was the first one I could think of.
No.
Icos.
This was the one that he and I think 3 other people created before they'd graduated from college, mind you, was Excite. And
I've heard of that, yeah.
And it was later bought by MSN, which is their main search engine now. But it was so crazy, too, because this is like, this kid, I remember, he was, I don't know, maybe 23, 22, I don't know. He was still a young cat. The company kind of went public or something. He was explaining that they had Jimi Hendrix's Are You Experienced song, right? Playing as a promo for this thing. And the rights to the music cost them $250,000. And we're zipping around in Palo Alto in his 911 BMW that he had just bought cash money. Young money, you know, but still. Yeah, good kid. But it was really fascinating, like, in what he was explaining, like the thing that he was, the way he described what a browser was before browsers. This is before Google, right? The way he described what a browser was, and what they were trying to do with this new Boolean technology.
Boolean,
thank you. Was the ability to not just look for a piece of text in the document that would match up, but this or maybe and find something that could be related to it through a series of other short commands. And the idea was, this was, at least the way it was described to me, is this was just like a Dewey Decimal System for everything that had ever been written. Like, all libraries of knowledge were going to be scanned into this browser, and it would be used to research and discover text on subjects in libraries around the world. And it seemed like this was the, you know, to steal a term, a singularity type event, where now all knowledge of mankind would be now accessible to anyone, anywhere, at any time, with a few strokes of a keyboard. You know, what the internet turned into, cats, porn, and streaming videos, I don't think was really conceived of yet. But obviously that was the logical direction things would go.
That's it. That's a good concept. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't use it for cats or porn personally. It's really communication for me.
Yeah, who needs cats?
Your school. Don't you use it a lot for your law school?
Yeah, but I mean, that's part of the communication, I suppose. But, you know, I Skype rather than use my phone. You know, I video chat with all, you know, friends and family and everything. I wouldn't have done that a decade ago. I was saying, when you dropped out before, Justin, you know, Chelsea's first experience was Skyping when she was 12 hours old with her grandparents.
Oh,
and even now, every time Skype rings, she thinks it's for her. It's like, not all the calls are for me, Mum, because, you know, that's my sound.
Yeah.
I was like, no, not all of them, just about half of them. So, yeah, it's completely different. Whereas my first experience was 19 and at uni. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I was thinking about, is how, what a difference in generations, and how the smartphone, the new models for companies, entertainment industry, completely changing, and the people that are in control now, they're old people. For the most, they don't understand. For instance, they don't understand that they say, okay, I'm releasing this record, no one else can copy it, and we're going to arrest you and throw you in jail, and in an hour you've got 97,000 copies of that song on the internet. I mean, it's completely new model of just about doing almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look at the largest transportation company in the United States right now. They don't own a single vehicle. Uber is what I'm talking about. Uber is the largest transportation company in the United States. They don't own a single vehicle in their network. You look at two of the biggest marketing firms in the United States, the merchandisers, the people who sell stuff. You got your eBay and your Amazon. They don't own a single brick and mortar anything. There's
Amazon did for a little while.
Huh?
Amazon did for a little bit.
Oh, did they really?
They were trying something out, like demoing products. You couldn't buy them; you had to go to Amazon to buy them.
Oh wow! I never saw that in California.
Well, I was told they did this at one point in time. They may have had plans and just not done it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I never saw anything that looked close to that California-wise, anyway. But yeah, the model shifts, and the model doesn't shift. I mean, the model actually goes back to what we already had, and I was working at Sears at the height of the tech boom, and I was like, somebody should give me the reins of this company now. Somebody just needs to turn the company over to me. Just for like a year or two, because this is the company that invented the catalog, and the catalog is what catapulted Sears Roebuck, and was the first version of an Amazon or an eBay where you could open up this book, select stuff, say I want that. You have to send postage with the proper cash, but somebody would, and it would arrive. The product would arrive at your house. They had that. Plus, they had now, in the current day, they had the brick and mortar distribution centers that could put a refrigerator in any home anywhere in America. And they completely, totally, and fully missed the connection between their catalog, online shopping, and the ability to distribute everywhere, anywhere, at any time. The company that should be atop Amazon and eBay for retail, for merchandising, should be Sears right now, because they had the infrastructure and the history that would point in this direction, but were headquartered in the Midwest and therefore completely out of the loop of technology, apparently. We're putting Midwestern dresses in Hawaii. So there is generational differences, but there's also blindness, I think, sometimes, and thinking that the new thing is really something new, or that the old ways isn't what you're trying to do now as well. Like there's a lot we can learn from our own history that we could reincorporate. One of those things is free education. That used to be a thing in this country. Free higher education used to be pretty normal, and we had a huge boom of educated people because of it. And we've somehow turned it into a profit center for banking systems. That is absolutely ruined education. So we need to go back. We need
That's
to
another
something.
thing. Education. So much education is online now. There's only a few degrees that you have to go on campus for. You know, being a doctor, being a nurse, being a vet, you kind of have to go on campus and do the dissecting and all that kind of stuff. But even a lot of that can be done offline. But, you know, law degree, I'm doing the entire thing, 1 week at the start and 1 week at the end on campus. I don't know why, they just make you do that, probably to justify their jobs. But the rest is completely online.
Those 2 weeks are a constant psych evaluation. I'm sure this is the only chance we're going to get to interact with the student.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're not giving a law degree to a crazy person.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for something like law, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. For a lot of things, what's going to count is
whether or not you're a crazy person.
I mean, I was just reading. Go ahead.
You can be crazy and be a lawyer.
Oh
be
yeah,
crazy.
actually, I'm sure it helps.
Yeah, but you could be crazy and be adopted. Just being crazy is dangerous.
There's a lot of stupid smart people out there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I was just reading Felicia Day's autobiography, and she's someone who is strictly out from the internet. She went to Hollywood. She wanted to be an actress. She made a bunch of money in commercials, but that was it. And then she went onto the internet. She came up with the series Codex, with the gaming series thing. She heavily promoted it herself. Her and her friend filmed it in a garage, practically from scratch, and she built a that Geek and Sundry channel. I think she sold it to somebody else. So there's an example, and she did not graduate from high school. She has 2 college degrees, one in math and one for playing the violin or something. But she never went to high school. But the bottom line is, she did it herself, her and her friends. A musical group. You can do that now. You just put out something on the YouTube. You get enough people to watch it. It gets spread out. It goes viral. Who the heck needs a record company?
Well, yeah. I think it's always been that way, though. I think it's largely always been that way. I mean, you look at a band like The Doors. The Doors played a ton of local venues around Los Angeles, and they were these, dorky band with an organ, bass player, guitarist, and this like random poet guy. And that's how they got picked up by the record company, and of course the record company is what made them successful. And it could envision a world where the internet being around then, they may have made it, or Jim Morrison might have just been into cat porn so much that he never bothered with the poetry. But yeah, I mean, there's a huge removal of that wall, that barrier to media that existed for all of media's life, where somebody else needs to approve of your message. And with that gone, yeah, everything is accessible. Everything is viewable by anybody. But there is an element for the artist's sake that is, the art is less profitable, I think, for many. I mean, you talked about that the album goes out and it's copied tens of thousands of times. Well, used to be people bought albums and the artist got the benefit of those albums and didn't have to actually have that 9-to-5 job anymore and could spend full time making more albums. And to an extent that's lost, I think. To an extent part of that's lost. Except for the condition of the sort of the manufactured or artificially produced bands that are being designed for consumption. I think there's, I don't know.
Yeah, but if you look at, I mean, how much money off of a record does an artist make? They make their money touring. They make their money touring around the country. That's where they make most of their money. Even on small local clubs or the big concerts. So really, I don't know they make all that much money from the actual record they produce themselves. I mean, you can go to Spotify for the most part. Taylor Swift's trying to stop that. She doesn't want it. But basically, you can go to Spotify, and you can listen to any new music you want. YouTube, any new music you want. Yeah. But the thing is, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
I had a friend. Digressing a little bit, most of the friends I made on the internet were evangelical Christians. Most of them, the largest block of my friends on Facebook, evangelical Christians, incredibly cool people. One of them is Mandy Thompson. Her husband is a pastor in a small church in Georgia. He's got a degree in freaking physics. She's an artist.
Mhm.
She created her blog. She went on to the internet. She said, here's my paintings. She advertised her painting. She said, okay, anybody like one of my paintings? You give me $10 or whatever. I signed up. I get little pictures of her paintings once a month. Now she has a studio. She has her own studio. I don't know. I'm guessing she might charge $1,000 or $2,000 a picture. I don't know. She's built that entirely up from the internet.
Mm-hmm. So Ed, what poor decisions did you make in your past that you have so many friends who are evangelical Christians?
They're cool people. Actually, again, that first online experience was on a group, because I'm saying these Christians are crazy people. They're stupid, crazy people. I went on a site called Friendly Christian. Okay, so Christians, atheists post on the site.
I love the asterisks. I love the asterisks. I don't know if it's an asterisk. This is a friendly Christian site, asterisk, or if it's in quotations. This is a friendly Christian.
So I went online. Now, right off the bat, I'm debating. I'm playing Justin Jackson.
Oh,
you
thank you.
are crazy.
Represent.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But gradually what I learned was they're not crazy people. And the one thing is, they're evangelical Christians, but they didn't try to convert me. And it went from a debate to a dialogue. Understanding each other. We're all people. I don't care you believe in God, you don't believe in God. Everybody behaves the same. We are people. That's one of my arguments to them. You don't have to pray to God. If you do, hey, you want to, it helps your life, 2 thumbs up. Tammy Hodge, another one, her husband's an evangelical Christian preacher, Tennessee. Okay. In her case, she grew up backwoods someplace. She had 2 abortions growing up. She was with a boyfriend who started abusing her. She ran away to Portland, Oregon, gets off the bus. She meets a guy. The church guy says, hey, you know what? We got a bed for you. Come here. Eventually, she gets introduced to the religion. It saved her life. For her. She found what she needed through the church for her. Our experiences may be completely different.
But that sounds to me more like she found community.
Yes.
Not and religion was just an avenue of that community. I have a community. I have my people. I have my circle of friends that I...
Can I be one of them?
I thought you already were.
Oh,
you know what I mean. Yeah. But you got your people that you have around you, and they... Yeah, whatever, it depends what problem I have or whatever, but there's different people that I go to for different things, and different people come to me for different things.
Wait,
that's my community.
Come to me for anything. Wait, how come I'm not on the short list?
But I don't, there's no religion involved. So it sounds like that lady needed a community, and that's wonderful that she found it.
Well, the thing is, I understand why she's in that community. I understand why she married a preacher. I understand why the highlight of her week is going into church. Her children, she adopted 2 children. One's a singer in the group, at the church group. One's a drummer. Family experience. I understand. It's understanding, and I understand that. But I also completely agree with you guys. It's the community. I go to church twice a year. I go on Easter, Christmas, in beautiful ceremonies. Really a tremendous experience, outpouring of love. It's not God to me, it's the community I'm with. It's the atmosphere. But I understand. I understand it. I understand it, and I'm not going to say they're wrong.
Oh yeah, I'm not one to stand up at a religious funeral when the priest, pastor, preacher, what have you designated cleric at the podium is saying the dearly departed is off to a better place, I'm not gonna go bullshit. That's not my style. But I will be thinking it. I will be thinking it. I have to admit, I won't not be thinking. And actually, in my thoughts, I'm even yelling it.
Okay. Let's go back to that whole God thing. Outside the universe. It doesn't even fall under science. Science is even different, as you said, to that question. Yeah. But we can't
because
they're wrong.
Yeah, of course. But here's what I love about this argument. Is that this argument has evolved. We've talked about this, right? Yeah. The argument evolves for science into more and more detail of the universe, more and more definition, more and more understanding, knowledge, and fine-tuned from the smallest type of particle possible to biological processes to the cosmos and the interactions of the cosmos. Science is constantly gaining more detailed information that it can stake ground in. And religion is getting to the point where, well, there had to be something before the Big Bang, right? The Indian religions, well, there's maybe consciousness exists at a subatomic quantum level, and that's the Brahman that we were referring to. It's a subquantum effect of the universe in which consciousness can exist, or it's beyond. You know, I mean, they have to go through these. They've been giving up ground. It used to be you could say, yes, the plague occurred because God disapproved of you making an altar to the wrong saint, and people go, we screwed up. We made an altar to the wrong saint, and God's pissed. And that was reality. God was interacting on a daily basis. The earth was flat. God was in the clouds. He made the tide go in and out. The more answers we got that disprove stuff, God created mankind from clay. It's just mankind and slapped him down. Now we have all of evolution. Well, maybe God was an idea at the Big Bang that someday there'd be this one galaxy out of hundreds of billions upon which there'd be this one planet that would be, we would create out of evolution and slightly tweaking the process, man in God's own image. After the dinosaur thing, which God just likes dinosaurs, which is why he did that. He thought that was cool. Like, they have to go through these contortions and extreme to where, like, well, how do you explain why the Big Bang happened? And there must be something that creates rationality out of quantum nonsense for reality. So yeah, religion gives ground constantly, everywhere, except, and this is why I don't like religion, except in church. In church, those outrageous claims that deny evolution, that deny science, that say some people are evil because of their sexual preferences, or not far back in the history of the universe, which God created. You only have to go back 50 years when the Mormons said blacks didn't get into heaven. You know, religion is a horrible tool of manipulation, really. And as much as they want to claim it to be this answer for everything, it answers absolutely nothing, and can only be fully realized in manipulation of a small population that shows up willing to be told anything and believe it.
Yeah, but isn't religious faith evolving? And by that I mean, when you look at the number of atheists, agnostics, and what do they call it? I forget that third category. People that don't believe in doctrine anymore. They believe in God, they don't believe in doctrine.
Spiritualists or something?
No, it's not. Anyway, there's three categories, and the big trend is upward. And the biggest trend is people who don't believe in doctrine. Okay. I've got my friend. I talked about Mandy Thompson, her husband, Drew Thompson. Here's a guy who understands physics. He understands physics better than I do. I've never been to one of his churches when he gave a sermon. I don't know. I have interacted with him. He certainly believes in the scientific doctrine. Now, the thing to him is he believes in a spirit. He still does believe, certainly, in a spirit. He believes praying can help people focus. He believes there's life after death, but he understands that's a question. What I'm getting at is there are the people, the religious faith will survive with those people whose religious faith can evolve. And it can evolve away from strict interpretation of doctrine. Skeptic face there.
Well, because of the doctrine. Okay, so this is the problem with doctrine. That is, you can go another generation, or you can go to the next church over in the next little valley that hasn't been communicating on the internet and socially interacting with that slightly evolved church to the north, the south, the east, the west, and they're reading the same text. And the text doesn't change with the evolution of the religion. Understand? The text remains the same until somebody takes up the Sharpie and crosses out large swaths of the infanticide, misogyny, permission for spousal abuse, the permission for violence against others and non-believers in all religions, just about. It maintains, it survives. And so what really you kind of can look at is those progressively religious groups as being like harboring terrorists in a way. You know, this is one of the things. Like I honestly do believe that the Taliban or ISIS are interpreting the Quran properly. They're reading the text and they're reading it literally. And if you had Christians reading it literally, as we did through the Dark Ages, you would have mass beheadings of non-believers, which we did through the Christian, they want to call it the Middle Ages because they don't like the Dark Ages, because that's the rise of Christianity happened in those Dark Ages. That's why they want, just call them the Middle Ages. Get rid of the darkness thing. Because, yes, we lost all the education of engineering and science that the Roman Empire and the Greek civilization had created, but we had Christianity rise as a force then. So just call it the Middle Ages. But yeah, they did mass beheadings of the infidels of the time.
Okay, Justin. Let me jump in right there. Let's talk about all the wonderful ancient scientists and technicians who built all the war machines that killed a bunch of people. So they were the ancient scientists. And we've evolved. Science has evolved. So you really can't go, I don't think, go back in time. If you're going to go back in time and evaluate Christians, you got to go back in time and evaluate the scientists as well.
Okay. So first of all, I was contrasting for a moment. Just to be fair. Okay. The Middle-aged Christians engage in mass beheadings of non-believers. When we look upon ISIS with horror, we are witnessing the origin of Christianity. This is the same vehicle. They're basically taking the playbook of middle-aged Christianity here and applying it to the modern age, which seems so savage and horrific, and they're beheading innocent people in a graphic way to send a message, which is exactly how Christianity took root during the Middle Ages in Europe. Exactly the same sorts of techniques, first of all. And the question about the scientific minds being involved in warfare, well, as a matter of fact, it's the same technology that landed us on the moon that created the, the V1 rocket in Germany, right? It was the same technology and the same scientists, thanks to Project Paperclip, that created the rocket lift technology. And the scientists are looking to lift a rocket. And it is up to society politic, the leaders of the political bodies that are in charge, that happen to be lucky enough to have these brilliant minds within their society to apply these things. The scientific mind is about discovery. And so, yeah, the same thing that killed hundreds of thousands of people and a nuclear explosion and 2 nuclear explosions in Japan killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people is the same sort of thing that has the lights on throughout France and is creating a green electricity there. So yeah, science can be applied depending on the society under which it's employed.
Pamela, do you have anything to say? You want to chip in? Anything?
Well, yeah.
What are you going to tell Chelsea when she wants to know about religion and God?
Ask Justin. That's what she'll say.
Why would she ask that? I never do.
Well, maybe she meets somebody on the streets. Maybe she's on the internet. She's on the internet.
They're the minority here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
Yeah, this is the point. We're all born atheists. It takes a great deal of manipulation.
Yeah, but when we die,
otherwise.
we're all going to pray. We're all going to hope.
It's only if she goes to the US, she'll encounter it, but she won't really get it here. So it's not something.
If she follows any of my Facebook friends, she'll encounter it.
Sure. Yeah. No. I'm an atheist. Her father's agnostic, so yeah, she can make up her own mind about things, but I can't imagine her delving into religion. She doesn't come from any religious background. Neither side of the family is religious in any way. So.
And in terms, as I say, in terms of behavior, whether or not you believe in God, I don't think makes a significant difference. Rituals, they're different, but in terms of how we actually behave, I don't. So I look at China, kind of hoping when Justin jumps back in. And look at an atheist country, or a country run by atheists, China. I don't think the Chinese government behaves all that dramatically better, and it's a misogynistic society. Anything you can say bad about a Christian? Oh, go ahead.
So it's the US. I mean, your women get paid as much as your men there. That's crazy.
Yeah, my point would be, even if atheists ran the country, as they do in China, I'm not sure that it would be. I think it would be, but I'm not 100% sure it would be dramatically better.
And when you were saying before about the war machines invented by the scientists, but your governments are primarily Christian. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, they're all Christians, right? And they're the ones that are, the US are invading how many countries? 173 or something? It's ridiculous. So it's the Christians that are deploying these weapons.
That's primarily a lack of understanding, an inability to see the world from anything but the eyes of the United States. The world revolves around the United States. That's that problem. They don't understand.
Only people in the U.S. think that. No one else.
I'm saying our leaders, our U.S. leaders, are U.S.-centric, and they don't adequately understand the peoples and conflicts that we get involved in. They don't understand the dynamics of Iraq. So they get involved in a war in a country. I remember whoever the heck was the Secretary of Defense saying, okay, we got rid of Hussein. We're not going to let a bunch of mullahs rule the country. Excuse me? It's a Muslim country. So it is sad and somewhat depressing to see these people who, well-educated, intelligent, and have no clue about the outside world. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
it's funny when I meet people who are outside, here that are outside the US for the first time, and there's, and I don't mean to generalize, but it's true for everyone who hasn't traveled much or is just started. They are so arrogant. They don't know they are. They don't mean to be. They're very nice people, but they assume that everyone else in the world wants to live in the US. No way! We don't. You guys think, you know what I mean? Like you guys are told that the world revolves around you, but no one else thinks that. It's yeah, it's amazing, and you have to be very gentle when you burst their bubble and go, no man, sorry, I don't envy you. And they're genuinely shocked. What? Why? Because that's what you're taught at school. Everyone wants to be like the US, but everyone wants to be almost the opposite of the US, if anything.
I think of American tourists, and I'm going to say it's the majority of Americans going anywhere, and one of the things they'll say is, do you speak English? That's one of the first, do you speak English? Let's see, you're in China. I don't think so. Maybe they do, but...
Oh, you can. You're very fortunate. You can find English speakers pretty much anywhere, but I always try and learn, what I can before I go somewhere. We've got to learn some Bahasa, haven't we, before we go to Indonesia, so that we can speak, Bahasa, so we can speak the local language a little bit.
Well, I'm guessing you go to Switzerland or someplace, right? The majority of people speak. You're not going to, the first thing you do when you get off the plane, you're not going to a Swiss person and say, do you speak English? You're going to attempt to make yourself understood through some sort of, you're not going to just say, do you speak English?
Yeah, they're really snobby though, because I spoke I spoke French when I was there as much as I could, and they would roll their eyes and answer me in English. So obviously my French was good enough to be understood because they answered me correctly, but it's not enough to be speaking French. It's got to be Swiss French with the right accent, and so they can be snobby about it.
Yeah,
but at least I tried. At least I tried. But they do. They're all bilingual. They're all multilingual there, because I learned Italian when I was a kid for a couple of years, and I was really tired one day, and instead of saying "Scusez-moi s'il vous plaît," I said "Mi scusi per favor," being Italian instead of French. I just said the wrong thing. But they understood me because they all speak about 6 languages there. So Switzerland's a bit different. But yeah, I just think anywhere you go, you can communicate even if they don't speak English. But mostly people do speak English. But I think that's arrogant to ask, do you speak English and not try and learn something, or at least take a phrase book with you and try and get along in their language. Because why do we think English is so good? It's actually a really stupid, complicated language.
And there's the generational thing. The younger generation, they mix with different cultures a lot more. I think there are a lot more bilingual Americans in that 20 age bracket than there are in that 50 age bracket. So I think it's even changing. It's more of a general. The unfortunate thing is all of our leaders are over 50.
Wait. I got to say something though to this, because Pamela just said something that I didn't realize about Pamela, which is that she finds foreigners in her country who don't speak perfect English to be arrogant.
What?
And I'm really, yeah, you did, and I'm really curious, like, how you came to this conclusion.
I didn't.
Well, didn't you say that you felt that if you go to a foreign country and don't learn how to speak the language, that you're kind of being arrogant?
Yeah, if I do that.
Okay, I guess I extrapolated that to people who were in your country who didn't learn how to speak perfect Australian, which is a weird language all by itself, as being arrogant for not having picked up the local dialect.
English speakers are arrogant all
Why?
over.
No, we're the international language. This is and this I experienced when I went to Denmark. and I would try to take my few hashed together words that I'd learned to speak to order a frickin' beer at a bar, and somebody would go, "Oh, you speak English? You're American." I don't know if I'm like doing a Bavarian accent. I don't even know what accent this is. It's not Danish. But anyway, they would always break into English to talk to me because they wanted to try out their English on me. And this was the thing. So I don't think I agree with you about the whole it's arrogant to go into a foreign country and not speak the language already.
No, there's not complete, but to not even try. And just go,
So you would think that labor workers in the United States who don't speak English are arrogant. Right? This is my point. This is what I'm saying. Is that you have to apply that standard both directions. So people who seek refuge in Australia but haven't picked up English perfectly, you think they're a bunch of arrogant bastards. Might as well go back to their own country if they haven't learned to speak the Queen's English first.
Doesn't work in both directions.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
This is why you're putting too much emphasis. My point is, I agree with you on the visitors to Australia and the United States not speaking perfect English not really mattering. I agree with that. And I agree that if I go to any country and don't speak the language, I want to be treated accordingly. I want to be treated as we're going to have to do some sign language and go to the Google Translator for me to even book my hotel that night. It should be just fine. I shouldn't be thought of as arrogant for not having learned every language in every country I'm traveling to, because that's freaking ridiculous.
Just in greetings. Okay, so I wish I had. I will never post anything on TripAdvisor again. Okay, because I get messages about this all the time. It's ridiculous. So last December, I booked my hotel in Abu Dhabi before I got there, and then I rated it on TripAdvisor. I don't know why I did that, but I did. Anyway, I get messages all the time. How did you book it? Because you can't do it online. I telephoned them. Oh, how did you speak to them? Well, like this. And so anyway, when I spoke to them,
English.
They do. They speak English. But when I called, I can't even remember how to do it now, but I looked it up at the time, and I did my greetings and salutations in Arabic.
Yeah. So here's also the thing. The reason the French rolled their eyes at you.
No, that was the Swiss, not the French. The French were lovely.
You said it was the French.
No, it was the Swiss speaking French.
Oh.
No, this is the thing. I did not find
Swiss
French.
Speaking French. All right, look. Okay, they're irritated because French, 112 years ago, was the international language. If you were a diplomat and you wanted to go talk international anything or international business, you had to know French because that was the language. Everybody agreed. We're all going to take French class. Post-World War II, it was English. And the French have never gotten over the fact that and I totally agree, their beautiful language, okay? Their beautiful language was no longer the international currency of communication.
Yeah, it is in a lot of places though. No, what I mean is just if you even just learn a few words, a few something, just don't go somewhere and just go, do you speak English?
That was where we started from. Typical American I see, and the first thing they do is they don't make the attempt. The first thing they do is, do you speak English? They assume that person's going to have to know how to speak English. Vietnam. The French, nasty people in Vietnam, but they learned how to speak Vietnamese. They could do a reasonable job and everything else. They learned how to speak the language of the country. American soldiers in Vietnam? No. Very few. Some did. Very few American soldiers that I knew made any attempt to learn the local language.
If I'm eating in a Chinese restaurant and it's a genuine Chinese restaurant, and a Chinese person serves me, I say "chichen." I don't say thank you. I say "chichen." It's just little things like that that makes the world a nicer place.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
And
But I
doesn't.
have a feeling if you went to China and you sat down in a restaurant and the waiter knew any English at all, he would attempt to
would learn
converse
to
with you
practice.
completely in English. Yeah, because this is what happens.
English is mandatory in Chinese schools, at least in the big city. It's mandatory. I don't know that a second language is mandatory in any American school.
So this is what I learned about Denmark. Denmark, they teach all their citizens pretty much English.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is their main source for English teachers is Great Britain. So they speak like British accent English.
Yeah.
And I had this. I got this opportunity to teach English or participate in the English teaching, in the English slang language course for international students on campus recently. And it was kind of awkward. Like, we had to pretend to be movie stars, so I was Johnny Depp, and so I talked in the sort of Johnny Depp-esque conversational way, sort of throughout the whole thing. I didn't get to choose. It was that or Brad Pitt, and I'm like, I don't even understand how Brad Pitt talks. I don't even know what that looks like. So I did Johnny Depp the whole time. But the point was, I was trying to explain to them that the English that they learn will be understood anywhere, because you're in California. And if you're learning California English and California slang, this is media English. This is the international English, as California speak. You're going to be understood anywhere you go in this country if you speak Californian. But if you may not understand any of the locals. You can go to Boston and not understand people. You can go to Philadelphia and it seems like they're speaking a foreign language. The South has a dialect and a conversational style that you will not recognize. They'll understand you, though, and this is the important thing. They'll understand what you're saying if you speak crisp, clear California lingo, because this is where Hollywood is, and it's sort of like the Kent English, right? I think it's I don't know what Kent is even in England, but it's the language choice of the BBC. The version of British dialect that the BBC uses, everybody in the UK can understand it, but you have versions of UK slang that a lot of other people in the UK won't understand, and if they come to the Americas, we have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, you know what? We can get back to the smartphone. Smartphone now has the language.
Oh yeah. Oh, my Siri now has a British accent, which I have not figured out how to stop doing. I've got to, like, I think one of my daughters might have accidentally, or maybe on purpose, I don't know, done this switch. But all of a sudden, my Siri is speaking British at me, and I haven't not figured out how to switch her back to good old Americanese.
That was going to be another one of my topics we can touch on briefly, certainly, is smartphones and now Siri and whatever the Google thing is. How that smartphone now has become almost a mandatory. You talked about, Pamela, people all over the world have their little smartphones now, and it's almost a part of their body, almost a part of your body.
Yeah,
and
in places where you don't even have, clean drinking water everywhere, you have a smartphone. Seriously.
And with Siri and the apps now allow the smartphone to know everything about you, track where you are. The phone that's on your wrist, it can tell what your heartbeat is. It can track how many steps you're taking. And now you have apps that will say, you only took 1,000 steps today, you're 4,000 steps short of your goal. Now when you think about it, Siri's becoming the virtual grandmother. I can see it
Big
now.
grandma.
Sherry's going to say, wait a minute, Ed. Your diabetic meal plan says you can't have potato chips. Now you better put that potato chip bag out of your shopping cart, or I'm going to tell the computer over by the checkout stand, and it's going to sound the warning, Ed, you better put those potato chips back.
And
Yeah,
is that a bad thing?
I don't know. I'll tell you, when I'm sitting down in front of my TV set, my Apple TV says, wait a minute, Ed, you're looking at an inappropriate YouTube video there. I don't think I can let you do this.
Now I have a low-tech phone. I do have a tablet, but I don't use the apps on it or anything. I'm not really sure why I have it.
Oh.
I'll give it.
Quick segue here. So Julian Assange.
Yeah.
A few of the charges dropped.
Yeah, because they haven't proven anything. It's been too long, so it's done.
Also, sort of interesting. Like, part of this scenario is that in order to charge him, they would have had to interview him by a certain date. And while he maintains that they could at any time send a delegate in to the Ecuadorian embassy in Great Britain, they have yet to. Yeah,
they could have. There was no reason why they couldn't have. So, and he said that was it. Either interview me here, or if I come to Sweden, guarantee you won't give me to the US. They would not guarantee his safety. And they didn't interview him. So too bad, so sad.
Yeah. And so as slowly as this story is unfolding over years, it's starting to look like those extraditionable charges are going to disappear. But there's still he's still going to be on this home arrest. I mean, he has not left this embassy for years now. What do you think? What do you think, Pamela? What do you think his out is? How does he eventually leave this home arrest state? Is his home country showing any kind of support?
No, Australia. No, Australia's not the place to be right now for him. He has support here. Yeah, he has his own political party, for goodness sake, of which I am founding member number 70. But
nice.
Out of the first 500 or something, it means I paid $20 first. Anyway, but our current government are ludicrous. He probably needs to wait until the next election, and hopefully someone more favorable towards him will get in and he can come home. But
and how long do you think this embassy is going to be able to give him refuge?
Oh, no, Ecuador love him.
Oh, good for Ecuador.
They won't throw him out. No, he's. I think, have they given him citizenship or just asylum?
I don't know. That's a great question. I have no idea. We need to. Okay, I feel like Pamela, like now that he's been on home arrest for a number of years, isn't getting out and about as much. Maybe now is the time to tap him for a MW interview.
Okay, I'll follow it up.
Can you work on that? Can you see if we can talk to him? Just I'd like to get a 2-on-1 conversation, us and Julian, and see what his plans for the future are. And ask him anything. I mean, ask him what he thinks of the current election cycle here in the United States. Ask him what he thinks of the ISIS thing. I'm like really curious. We haven't heard enough from Julian lately.
Doesn't he have like an organization, and doesn't he communicate through that organization?
Through WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks?
Yeah. No, I'll follow it up. Don't pull my hair. I was going to go and try and get a visit in when I was over in the UK, but then I was unceremoniously. There was an unexpected departure, and I had to go to Switzerland, so I haven't been back to the UK yet.
How do you spell Assange?
ASSANGE.
He's on Facebook.
No, well, he's got a page. Yeah, no, his realness
He
is
has a
not.
page. He's not posting anything. I can like him.
You can like him. Yeah.
I can like him, but that's it.
There are ways to communicate. I'll get in and yeah. I'll work on it. I've been busy. I have 10 exams next month.
Blah, 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 blah.
No. But what I'm saying, listen, after 10 exams, I have about 4 months where I'm good. I can do anything, go anywhere.
Ed, I don't mean to misogynistically talk over the female co-host of the Science Zone Hangout here for the moment, but I have not known Pamela to ever not be busy. So her using her multitasking thing of 10 things at once as an excuse for not doing one more thing.
No, listen. I should have only had 5 exams, right? Mm-hmm. But I got a concussion last semester, so I ended up having to because I was vomiting for.
What? When did this, how come I don't know about this?
I don't know. I did.
Oh, I got a did we bump heads? Because that might be why I don't remember. I may be suffering from the other end of that concussion.
Yeah, no, I was pulling a baby gate down out of my shipping container, and the leg smacked me here.
She posted. Yeah. Pamela posted that.
I must have been off the line that week.
Yeah, no, it was like about 3 weeks where I was pretty sick with it all. So, and then I was all right. So I'm fine, everything's fine, but it was at exam time. So I had to postpone, I had to get special consideration and forward all my exams. So now I've got to sit the 5 I should have sat in May and the 5 that I was going to sit now. So I've got 10. That's why I'm saying I'm really...
Okay. So, so we need a good Julian... We need a good Julian update, preferably an interaction. Also, what's... I also need to know, like... Because Meaningless Words hasn't been on the air for so long, I don't know what's going on with Chelsey. I don't know what the
they're going to lock her up in solitary confinement forever. Because she had a book or something. They found a book in her jail cell.
We'll do a big follow-up. Seriously.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as my exams are over, I'm going to Indonesia. But I can do the show in Indonesia.
Aren't you going to Bali? That's in Indonesia. So your exams are going to be next week?
No. My exams are in a month.
No. I thought you were going to Bali like in a week or something.
No. And then I'm going to Bali after that.
Okay.
So, no, I'm going to Cairns in 2 weeks.
Oh. All right. Chelsey. Okay, I gotta go.
Yeah. But we will. We'll do. So get all your research together, and I'll get onto communications and see what I can do. And I shall endeavour to.
I should show up and be ready to shoot from the hip on whatever you throw at me.
Yeah, you just sit down and look pretty. It's all right. You have a pretty face.
Not even. No, you have a much prettier face. People tune in. Not me. Yes.
It's makeup.
Yeah, so is mine. I just don't tell people that this isn't my actual face.
Right.
Good night, Ed.
Good night, Justin. Good night to our 3 viewers.
Good night.
Thank you for hanging in so long.
Wherever you are.
Yes. And I'm ending the broadcast. Are you going to be here next week, Pamela? Do you think?
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, great. See all you guys next week. Goodbye, Patrick, who is probably falling asleep.
Wherever you are.